healing inquiry with a goal of a healed and reconciled Queensland based on a shared understanding of a full and complete history. One-year Kalkadoon man, barrister Joshua Creamer, is chairing the 3-year inquiry, and along with the other 4 members of that inquiry have been setting up the foundations for the hearings. Joshua Creamer joins us now from Brisbane. Good morning, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Dan.
Tell me, what are you hoping to achieve through this inquiry?
Well, firstly, hoping that everybody who wants to participate gets an opportunity. In order to do that, we're going to travel across the state and so that people can come along, share their history. Secondly, I think it's important that all Queenslanders have the opportunity to engage and understand the work we're doing, and we'll learn from the history that we're going to reveal during this process.
Joshua, you've got a background in human rights, class actions and native title, and a lot of experience in fighting for the rights of First Nations people. What type of evidence are you expecting to hear?
Look, it's interesting. There's the oral evidence and there's both a huge resource of documentary evidence here in Queensland. And I know there's some challenging stories, there's some real brutal accounts which I expect to hear, but also I know I've heard stories of real resilience and excellence and strength, and I think we'll hear a combination of both over the course of the next 3 years.
And you mentioned there about some of it being quite brutal. I imagine that some of it's going to be very tough and require quite a bit of soul searching, isn't it?
Certainly the work we're doing is going to be trauma-informed, and because we will be dealing with a lot of traumatic issues, witnesses will be talking about things which are huge vessels of trauma for them. So it'll be tough for people to share those stories. It'll have an effect on them and their family, and I think it'll be tough for Queensland to hear just some of those accounts and realise what's gone on in our history.
How do you expect that this will lead to that goal that I mentioned a moment ago of a healed and reconciled Queensland?
Well, certainly that's the obligation we have to do, and through sharing our history, through really revealing the experience of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, and as I say, some of the really tough parts of it that Queenslanders will start to learn and start to understand why things perhaps are the way they are, and what we can do better from that knowledge.
I want to talk about the mechanics of this hearing for a moment. Can you give us a sense of how the hearings are going to work? Will they be live streamed? And also, how can Queenslanders get involved?
Certainly we have a public awareness function. That's a requirement under our terms of reference, and we'll have both hearings, which are more formal processes, familiar to what your viewers would have seen with the York Commission, and then we'll also have sessions, truth-telling sessions, and they can be really informal. They can be with one member of the inquiry and a person sitting in a room and sharing their experience. So we have flexibility to employ both. We will have live streaming. We will be producing documentary and other material that the audiences can sit down and watch and engage with. And as I say, we have a really important public awareness function. So you'll hear a lot more about the inquiry over the coming months.
And when this inquiry was announced, Joshua, there was also a treaty institute that was established. Will there be any overlap of the work of your inquiry and that Queensland's First Nations Treaty Institute Council?
That's right. The Treaty Institute's set up as a separate body, and under our terms of reference, the work that we do will support the treaty-making process, so it has to inform that. And that is one element of the aspect, and from a treaties perspective, they have their own council, and we'll work collaboratively with them over the coming months to ensure that our processes are really smooth and there's information that flows across from our inquiry to them.
Joshua, are there any lessons from the outcome of the referendum last year of how you do this work?
I think the most important lesson is that everybody in Queensland and perhaps the nation actually understands what this truth-telling inquiry is, that they have an opportunity to hear, understand the work we're doing, where we're going to be, what type of evidence we're starting to reveal and uncover. And so for me, going back to the basics, what is it, what are we doing, where are we going to be, and how can people engage are fundamental to the success of the inquiry.
Do you think that there should have been processes like this before a national referendum on the voice?
Oh, that's a bit outside my remit. I mean, there's a huge amount of resources and effort and a great group of people that contributed to the voice, and our work is very different. Queensland's taken its own approach with the Path to Treaty Act, which establishes the inquiry in the Treaty Institute. That was passed over 12 months ago now, and really my job's to make sure the inquiry delivers on its obligations.
And just finally, Joshua, why do you think these mechanisms of truth-telling and treaty in Queensland are so important?
As you say, I've worked on some really significant historical cases, and I talk a lot to people about the work I do, and I'm often surprised that even people in all parts of our community, whether academics, whether lawyers, just don't understand the accounts of our history. And I think because of the way the history has happened in Queensland, there is an importance that we start as Queenslanders to learn from it, understand the foundations of our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander experience, and learn about how we can do better in the future. So it's an important process for everybody to engage with.
Joshua Creamer, Truth Telling and Healing Inquiry Chair, thank you for your company this morning.
Thank you, Dan.